Hey, and welcome back once again to Ancient Ways for Modern Days. My name is Mike Freeman. I am one of the pastors at Valley Christian Fellowship in Longview, Washington. Hey, I'm so excited to have you join me today as we again are looking at 1 Timothy chapter 6. We are near the end. And as we draw near the end, the Apostle Paul gives Timothy instructions for those who are rich in this world. Now, I want us to think about this with a kind of a big picture mind, at least perspective for a moment, because we think about those who are rich, and we would think of the Bill Gates and the Jeff Bezos of our world, who just have insane amounts of wealth and resources, and absolutely, they certainly are rich, and they are richer than most of us. Yet, when we look at this world from a global perspective, I want us to remember that we who are watching this in the United States of America, we live in a rather rich country. In fact, those who are middle class or even lower class here in the United States have relatively speaking, a rich existence compared to those who live in third world countries and most people throughout history. I mean, things like running water and refrigerators and AC and heat. These are modern wonders that are wonderful products of wealth. And they're blessings from God for sure. And so this is not a guilt motivating kind of video. Yet, I think these instructions that we are about to see, we could easily look at them and kind of dismiss them and say, this is not for me. But I would argue it is. It is for really all of us. And that said, let's go ahead and look at our text. We are in 1 Timothy chapter 6, verses 17 through 19. The text reads, it says, "As for the rich in this present age, charge them not to be haughty, nor to set their hopes on the uncertainty of riches, but on God, who richly provides us with everything to enjoy." I just love this. This is so balanced. He says, Timothy, here's your instructions for those who are rich in this world. You need to charge them, just like you were charged, not to water down the gospel, right? To keep it unstained and without reproach. He says, charge the rich not to be haughty. Don't be arrogant. Don't be proud of your riches, nor set your hopes on the uncertainty of riches. Don't be like the rich man that Jesus speaks of, who tears down his barns and builds bigger barns so that he can have greater wealth. And then he says to himself, "Soul, now you're satisfied." And then Jesus, that very night, says that his life is demanded of him. Don't set your hope on the uncertainty of riches. Don't set your hope in the stock market or your savings, but set your hope on God. On God, who richly provides us with everything to enjoy. This is recognizing that everything we have is a product of God's generosity, of His graciousness unto us. Everything we have has ultimately been provided by Him. Now, whenever I teach this, I like to meet the common objection where someone says, "You know what, Mike? I was raised poor and I worked, I learned a trade, or I got an education and I worked hard to build a business or to excel in the corporate world, and look at what I've accomplished and look at the riches that I have achieved." And I will say, yes, absolutely, you did all that, but the Lord gave you everything you needed to do it. Ultimately, He opened those doors. He gave you the intellect and the strength and the talent and the abilities because He is the one who richly provides us with everything to enjoy. And so our hope is not in ourselves or our riches or this world. Our hope is in God, who richly provides. The text continues. It says, "They, the rich, are to do good." To do good. To be rich in good works and to be generous and ready to share in your wealth. You should be eager to look around and say, how can I use what God has given me to do good works, to be generous, and how can I share? How can I share? This is to be a generous person, storing up treasures for themselves as a good foundation for the future so that they may take hold of that which is truly life. It's not talking about sharing your riches to earn salvation, but rather it's this picture of really experiencing true life, because Jesus Himself teaches that it is better to give than to receive. This text references Jesus' teaching of storing up our treasure in heaven. This reminds us of the eternal investment that we make here on earth with our finances. It's reminding us of the spiritual blessing that we experience when we are generous with our wealth. And this is the call to those who are rich in this world, in this present age, which I would argue it's probably you, in contrast with the world. What does this mean? Well, at our church, we teach this really clearly. We teach this means that you are not obligated to give based on the tithe in the Old Testament. That's part of the law which has been fulfilled in Christ. And so instead of rather trying to give a tithe, a 10%, or maybe technically speaking, according to the number of tithes that were experienced in the Old Testament, maybe it's more like 23.33% of your income over the course of a year. That's not what you're obligated to give. Rather, you are called to look at what you've been given and look at how you can generously use it to do what God has called you to do. To decide in your heart, determine in your heart as you are able, and as the churches in Macedonia did, even beyond what you were able at times, sacrificially, how can I be generous and use my wealth to show that I trust the Lord, to show that my trust is not in my wealth because I'm willing to be generous with it. How can I use my wealth to do good, to be generous, and to share? As we do this, we grow. We grow in faith, we grow in trust in the Lord, and we see his faithfulness work through us. And this is the call today. This is our ancient way for our modern day.